Welcome into Candlestick Chronicles, a 49ers podcast on the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Kyle Madson. I write about the 49ers over at NinersWire.com, part of the USA Today Sports Media Group. Joining me right now is Chris Biderman of the Sacramento Bee. And we're going to tell you about the homies over at Lamb Chops. SGLambchops.com. SGLambchops.com. At SGLambchops on Twitter. It's all right, just a little burp. Didn't want to do it in the mic. And promo code Candlestick20 at their website, sglambchops.com, to get 20% off your order of shorts, joggers, hoodie, t-shirts, whatever you want. Comfortable, quality, you look dope. I don't know what else you want in some clothing, man.
Looking dope, just super important, obviously.
Dude, that's step number one to fashion, is looking dope.
Gotta check that box.
Dude, good day for it. The fashion piece of this is something we need to talk about. No, it's just, dude, it's really good stuff. Go buy some and then send it to us on social media when you buy some.
Yeah, too many bits to start the pod.
Hoodie. It's
we're in hoodie season. It is officially hoodie season, I would say.
Well, I'm in Key West, Florida right now.
Wow,
no big deal.
Okay. Yeah.
It is 85 and raining currently. So at 9:14 p.m.
Are you drinking coffee?
So I'm drinking a decaf.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been a long day. But
all right, who else are we sponsored by?
SGLambchops.com. Sorry, we're also sponsored by Candlestick. Nope, not Candlestick Chronicles. Cooperage Brewing. Visit CooperageBrewing.com. They brew Candlestick Chronicles Hazy IPA. It's great. You can order it right now at CooperageBrewing.com. You can order a case. They'll deliver it right to your front door as long as you're 21 or older. And in the state of California, you get an entire case dropped off at your front doorstep. There's no better way to get beer. You don't have to leave the house. Well, you do to like step out and pick it up, like sign for it and pick it up. But I don't know, man. You send 24 beers to my front doorstep, I'm gonna be pretty excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I obviously have been drinking Candlestick Chronicles Hazy IPA since last weekend when we had our live event at Cooperage. And man, it's awesome. It's so good. Really good. The can is so great. We've seen pictures of I saw a few pictures today of people posting their Candlestick Chronicles Hazy at their tailgate outside of Levi's. It looks so dope
at a tailgate.
It's great it's great at a tailgate. So obviously all the beer at Cooperage speaks for itself. It's excellent. If you're in the North Bay, or you see it at a local store, they distribute to various stores in the Bay Area. Definitely check it out. It's as good as anything out there. And yeah, big fans. This is our third year running with Cooperage, so shout out to them for supporting us.
Cooperage Brewing, CooperageBrewing.com. The 49ers kicked the crap out of the Cardinals. Let's talk about it. 35-16. Cardinals had a chance for a cover at the end, but Zach Ertz messed that up. Tough scene for my guy Zach. This sort of went kind of how I thought it was going to go, where it was maybe a little bit closer than the Niners might have wanted it to be, but then they were just the more talented team and pulled away at the end.
Yeah, I mean, really, it was like a limited possession game, right? There are no turnovers. Ultimately, the Niners ended up scoring touchdowns. It felt a little bit closer than it probably would have been if there were more possessions, right? If there were a takeaway or two here and there.
Yeah.
But ultimately, Niners scored touchdowns on 5 of their 6 possessions. That's right. They punted just once. Christian McCaffrey, I mean, we'll talk about the superlatives and the numbers and where he's at in history. Christian McCaffrey was excellent. Brock Purdy maybe had his most efficient game since becoming the starter last year. And really, it was just one of those games where if you consider yourself a contender, that's like the game you just sort of take care of business, right? Yep. And that's exactly what it felt like the 49ers did. And like, yeah, the Cardinals did show signs of life, particularly offensively. And Josh Dobbs had a pretty nice game, I think, overall. And you'd say, man, maybe the Cardinals exposed some cracks, but then you come away from it like, yeah, it was only 16 points. Although it probably should have been 23 points, given the fact that Zach Ertz did drop that touchdown late when all the backups were in. But still, right. Like if your starters allow 16 points, covering the league for a little while, the number you hear when you talk about like whether or not defenses are happy with their performance is 17. They're like, if we have a good offense and we allow 17 or fewer, we feel great about our chances. And obviously that's, the 49ers are scoring 30 points every time Brock Purdy's out there basically. Like
Yep.
like 8 of his 9 starts, they've scored more than 30 in the regular season. So it's just, this team is a well-oiled machine right now, and they didn't have any major injuries. Deebo Samuel was basically a decoy today, still played, and they got, a lot from Brandon Ayuk after he missed last week's game with the shoulder injury. Ayuk had 148 yards, 6 of 6.
And can we stick on that for a second? Downfield stuff too. I think 3 of his catches were 20+ air yards, and it was really clear that was something that Brock Purdy struggled with back in week 2 against the Rams when he overthrew all those deep balls. But Ayuk being back in the lineup just changes the way this team can throw the ball with his ability to get open down the field. Like, that just unlocks an entirely new part of their offense. And it turns out Purdy can hit those throws. And if that's something he's going to do consistently, whether it's to Ayuk or Ray McCloud or otherwise, that's something in their offense that they've not really consistently had at all under Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really hard. Like, I would say, is there anything you can criticize Brock Purdy for today? Like, it wasn't like he lit it up and threw for 500 yards and 17 touchdowns, but like 20 of 21. Well, there was that
incompletion.
20 of 21 for 283 yards. He averaged 13.5 yards per attempt. He was sacked once. I guess maybe the sack, but
the sack was really bad. The sack circumstantially, you can't have that.
That's what some would call Andrew Van Ginkel's stepbrother with the spin move on Daniel Brunskill was nasty on that sack. I don't know,
Daniel Brunskill doesn't play for the 49ers.
Sorry, Colton McKivitz. We're all over the place. I think I got some of your jet lag via osmosis here, but no, totally. I think I don't know, what can you really say about Brock Purdy at this point? In that, like Next Gen Stats tweeted out that his completion percentage over expected, which is like an advanced metric that, I give a little bit of credence to. I don't fully lean in with the nerds and buy it, because it's like, who are we to judge like what a completion should be, right? Or it's just kind of a weird stat. But Next Gen Stats said his CPOE against the Cardinals was plus 28%. The highest mark by a quarterback with at least 20 pass attempts in a game over the last 7+ seasons.
That's so crazy.
It's crazy, but it just speaks to, it felt like every short pass felt like it was right on the money. Right? Yeah. It was just like it was in a spot where the receiver, the pass catcher, could make a move upfield. Even like the short little out to Christian McCaffrey near the end zone before the sneak. Yep. All the slants, just everything, all the crossers, like everything just felt today like it hit the receivers in stride. And at that point, it's like, what do you do if you're a defense?
Yeah, it's like geometrically impossible to stop them when they're rolling like this. Just when you look at the angles and stuff, it's tough. But the thing that sticks out to me with Purdy is there's like an urgency without being frenetic. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. When he hits McCaffrey in the flat, it's not like he's just lobbing it out there and hoping to get it to him. It's like there's a little pace on it so he can catch it and get upfield. It's like purposeful. And it's not just, okay, check down, I'm just going to lob it out there and we'll get a couple yards. It's like, no, this is a play that's going to get 12 yards if I can hit him in the stride. And with pace, so the defender can't come up and get there before he has the ball in his hands. That's just a little stuff that we talk about all the time with Brock. I feel stupid defending him at this point, because it's like, what else does he have to do? Well, he was so good on Sunday, coming off of a game last Thursday where, you know what? Hey, he didn't start great. And then in this one, he starts whatever it was, like 13 for 13 or whatever.
Yeah. I've said, like, my take has been that as the season goes on and as the 49ers win games, people are going to start to realize, like, oh, Brock Purdy's like actually playing at a legitimately high level. Mm-hmm. The thing that people, that the issue that people seem to have when it comes to like the punditry and like, it's just like, oh, this is just Kyle Shanahan's offense. Right. And like you tweet about it all the time. It's like, nah, man, the reason why Kyle Shanahan has not been able to settle on a quarterback until Brock Purdy has been because it is a little bit more than just like a point and shoot, just make the right decision. Like there is nuance to it, right? And you can see it by the play calling, by the confidence that Kyle Shanahan has in Brock Purdy. Like, obviously, he's not the most physically impressive quarterback. We talk about that all the time. But at a certain point, when you complete 95% of your passes in an NFL game and you average 13.5 yards per attempt and you're making those throws downfield to Brandon Ayuk, at some point, we got to get to a space where we're like, no, Brock Purdy is actually operating at a really high level and is not just like layup after layup after layup. Yeah. Right. And so that's what, that's what, like, not that narrative really matters. Like, the only thing that matters for the 49ers this season is winning the Super Bowl. And that's probably going to be the only thing that impacts the quote unquote narrative of Brock Purdy when it comes to like doing it nationally. But at some point, like, it's got to, the feeling about Brock Purdy needs to evolve from a standpoint of like, oh, he was a 7th round pick who's just thrown in this perfect situation. It is a perfect situation. We can acknowledge it's a perfect situation,
right?
But we can also acknowledge that he's playing at a really high level within that situation. And that's why you get stats like the 49ers about, like, all the superlatives about we got 14 straight regular season wins. The franchise record for the 49ers is 15. Right?
That's the 89-90 team.
That's
the back-to-back Super Bowl teams.
Right. They're at 30 points or more in 4 straight games to open the season for the first time in team history. They're the first team since the 2012-2013 Broncos to score 30 points in 7 straight games. I think that was an Eric Branch tweet.
And the 2013 Broncos are pretty good.
Yes.
They scored 600 points.
The 2015 team won the Super Bowl. I just, like, at some point we have to acknowledge, like, no, it's not just like a humming system with a replacement level quarterback. It's a really good system that is being run by a quarterback that's playing at an extremely high level.
Dude, they're averaging, you rattled off some stats there, and I don't know if you said this one or not, but since Purdy took over in week 13 last year in the regular season, they're averaging 32.6 points per game.
Pretty good.
32.6. And does McCaffrey play a role in that? 100%. We'll talk about Christian McCaffrey here in a second. Does George Kittle and Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk all play a role in that?
Wait, George Kittle? Did George Kittle play football today?
Hang on.
I'm just kidding.
TBD.
A good bit is just to roast George Kittle for his receiving numbers. You watch him, like, every big run. For 9 yards. Every big run they have, George Kittle is just like whooping his defender's ass.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm fully down to lean into the bit. We're like, oh, did George even play 1 catch? What are you doing, dog?
Look, at this point, Charlie Warner can give you 1 for 9. I just don't know why.
Is George Kittle the most overpriced decoy in the NFL? My call.
What does George Kittle do better than Braden Willis? I'll wait.
That's a good bit.
It's very good. So I understand that with Purdy, the scoring totals are due to those things for sure, but they were not doing this ever without Brock Purdy. I don't want to hear about Nick Mullins' passing yards.
Right.
Brock Purdy is so much better than Nick Mullins. And this offense is running at a much higher level than it ever did under Nick Mullins, and it ever did under Jimmy Garoppolo. And at some point, like, that's the quarterback. At some point, there's something he's doing as an individual that is allowing him to go 20 of 21 and to be as good in the intermediate area of the field as he's been. That was something we talked about a lot, right? He was 80.4% last year on throws 10 to 19 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. And it's like, man, 80% is a comically high number. That's going to regress. He was 19 of 21 coming into today and then was 7 of 7 today. He's 26 of 28 on throws in the intermediate area of the field this year after completing 80% of them last year. He's getting better at a stat that should have regressed precipitously. Yeah. And he's gotten better. So I understand that there are people out there that do, their quarterback analysis or whatever that are just out on Brock Purdy, and that's fine. And I'm sure that if you watch a game and you have a preconceived notion or a bias, you could cherry pick a handful of plays and go, yep, see, that's all Shanahan or that's all McCaffrey or that's all Purdy or all Samuel or whatever. But there are just as many, if not more, plays where it's like, no, that's Purdy going through progressions. That's Purdy beating a blitz. That's him completing a throw 30 yards down the field to Brandon Ayuk.
Like throwing with anticipation, like hitting a ton of guys before they break and hitting it and throwing it to the right spot.
And, people always go, well, there's open guys all over the field. That's the case for watch the NFL, dude. There are always open receivers.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, like, Deebo Samuel, not a great separator. Just facts. Right. George Kittle, as you can tell by his numbers today, not a great separator this season, as you can tell by his numbers this season. Scheme-dependent tight end, George Kittle. No, I don't know, man. I'm at the point now where I feel like if you're talking about Brock Purdy and you're going, well, he's just not very good, then you're just not watching. Or you decided a long time ago that he's not good and you're just riding it. Because
you've decided that unless you have somebody who looks like Patrick Mahomes or Justin Herbert or Josh Allen, that this is all Kyle Shanahan's doing.
Right.
Which, like, obviously there's an element of that, but you're missing a lot of it if you're just ignoring how well Brock Purdy's playing. The one thing I would say that like not necessarily a counter argument, but like, and obviously we're not anointing Brock Purdy by any means. We're not saying he's like an NFL MVP.
No, he just doesn't suck.
He just doesn't suck. He's playing at a really high level right now, but it's come against, like, I mean, the Steelers have a good defense, but Steelers, Rams, Giants, Cardinals, are those teams awesome? We saw the Steelers get destroyed today by Houston.
Shout out to Miko, man.
The Rams are fine. They're a little no, we're gonna learn a little frisky.
To your point, we're gonna learn a lot the next 2 weeks with the Cowboys and the Browns.
Yes. That's what I'm looking forward to. The fact that we get to watch Brock Purdy play probably the two best defenses in the NFL that are not the 49ers. Right, in Dallas and Cleveland, and Dallas got back on track in a pretty big way with their blowout win over the Patriots. So we'll see. There wasn't an element of looking ahead for Dallas, and it didn't seem like there was any element of looking ahead for the 49ers too, which is obviously a good thing going into that game. But no, the Niners and Eagles, the only two undefeated teams left.
Crazy.
In all of the NFL.
That Dolphins game was so predictable today, by the way.
Yeah, I thought the Dolphins were going to do it.
I was all in on the Bills winning, but now we're going to forget about the Dolphins. The Dolphins are going to quietly go like 13-4 and be awesome. Yeah. But no, here's I wanted to bring this up because you mentioned earlier the Niners they gave up 16 points. They've now allowed 18 second half points all year.
That's crazy.
And 6 in each of the last 3. They didn't allow any in the first game, and then 6 points in the last 3. Which is bananas.
There were some ridiculous numbers for the offense today. Like in the first half, they ran 22 plays before the kneel down. 16 of their 22 plays were first downs.
Did you see how many third downs they had the entire game?
I know at halftime, I think it was 3. 3 of those 22 plays were third downs. Or maybe it was 2.
They finished the game on third down, 3 for 5. And they ran 53 plays.
Which is crazy. So the Cardinals had 67 plays and they had 15 third downs.
One for one on fourth downs.
Three times as many third downs as the Niners did.
In 14 more plays.
It's crazy.
The Niners 1 for 1 on fourth down, 3 for 5 on third down, which is hilarious and also good. 1 for 1 on fourth down, 5 for 5 in the red zone, and 4 for 4 with goal to go. It's a good offensive day.
Good offensive day. And obviously, look, like, again, this is the Cardinals we're talking about.
No, they handled a team they should have handled.
For sure.
Like, that's the extent of it. This is not, we learned a lot about the 49ers. It was like, nope. They needed to be, I said before the start of the year, they needed to be 3-1. Minimum.
Yeah.
You go 3-1 through the first 4, and then you hit that Cowboys, Browns. I thought the Vikings would be better. Vikings, Bengals stretch heading into the bye. Going 4-0 gives you a little bit of wiggle room, but it's also knowing what we know now about the Steelers. It's like, yeah, you needed to go 4-0. And they did. And they've never been in danger of losing any of their games.
And what's encouraging to me too is like we've talked about this a lot, like just their slow starts to the last 2 years.
Yeah.
No slow start. They're one of two remaining undefeated teams in the league. And we can make the argument that the Niners look better than the Eagles based on just the eye test and the results, right? Like Washington taking Philly to overtime on the road doesn't, like I think the Eagles are good, but like for the Eagles to be the team that we think they are, like they need to be a little bit more dominant than they've been. They need to like win more decisively, like the 49ers have been early on.
The Patriots had the ball with a chance to win their game against Philly. Washington came back and took that game to overtime and had the ball in overtime with a chance to win it. And yeah, but to that point, I think Philly is going to start playing better as the season goes on. And I think that's what we're going to get from the 49ers too. And they just don't have to dig out of a 3-5 hole this year.
Yeah.
Today was the first day that it felt like their offense was really in sync.
That's interesting.
I guess week 1 it looked really good.
Yeah, well, what's interesting
week, it looked
about
a little
that
disjointed against the Rams. It was a little up and down.
Yeah, they went 30, 30, 30, and then 35 points today.
I know, and they're still averaging more than 30 points.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I'm glad the Cowboys game is coming. It feels like the Cowboys game is coming at a perfect time. In terms of like for us to be able to evaluate like how real this all feels. Like obviously it feels real, right? But like three of the 4 games have been blowouts. Right? And even the Rams game felt like it could have been a blowout had the offense just played a little bit cleaner. But the fact that it doesn't feel like they've played a juggernaut yet. Dallas obviously presents that opportunity to see what they have against a juggernaut.
Yeah, it's going to be... Yeah, we'll actually get to like learn... I don't want to call it a measuring stick game because it's more of a measuring stick for Dallas, I think, than San Francisco.
Sure.
But, I mean, when you're stacking up, last week aside, when you're stacking up the 3 best teams in the NFC, I think you're looking at Niners, Eagles, and Cowboys. And so this is going to be a really interesting look at where they land in this hierarchy. And it's also interesting because the Cowboys come in, they have a loss. They've been knocked out by the 49ers twice in the last 2 playoffs. I don't
know. Can we talk about Christian McCaffrey?
I was hoping so.
Light work, 4 touchdowns today. Probably should have been 5 if Brock Purdy didn't selfishly sneak into the end zone late.
Do you think Brock Purdy's losing the locker room, pulling stunts like that?
It's questions worth asking. So ESPN Stats and Info says Christian McCaffrey is the 3rd player in NFL history with 600 scrimmage yards and 7 scrimmage touchdowns through the first 4 games of the season. So just for context, like that pace over a 16-game season is 2,400 scrimmage yards and 28 touchdowns, right? The math gets tricky when you try to pace it out to 17 games. But for fun, we'll just say over 16 games that paces out to 2,400 yards and 28 touchdown season. Pretty decent.
Pretty good. That would get him in the MVP conversation.
I think he's probably, if there were a straw poll for offensive player of the year, he's probably winning it, right?
Yeah, but
I mean, he just won offensive player of the month. Is that an NFC award?
Right, yeah.
Who's MVP? I would have said Tua, but it didn't sound like today went great.
Is it Josh Allen?
Maybe. I would have to do a deeper dive. Just spend some time in the lab.
The thing is I've been doing some dives on this, and it's like Kirk Cousins having a great year, but they have 1 win now. Justin Herbert is having a great year. And then it's like Mahomes is going to be in the conversation, obviously, and now probably Josh Allen because they've now put up 35 plus in 3 straight weeks and just beat the crap out of the Dolphins.
Yeah.
But the Jets got a safety.
I was just looking at that game because I was looking at Patrick Mahomes' numbers to see if he was having an MVP type performance. Zach Wilson inserting his name into the conversation.
Okay.
14 of 19, 113 yards and a little 1-yard tutty.
Love that for him.
Listen, man. Do the Jets even need Aaron Rodgers when they make the playoffs?
Yo, hey, Juwan Taylor, my guy, the Chiefs paid him so much money. And they were lauded for letting Orlando, what's his name?
Orlando Brown.
Lauded for letting him walk and then signing Juwan Taylor to a cheaper deal. He's had penalty problems the entire season, and today the safety was holding on him in the end zone.
Not great.
That's really tough.
Jets coming to play.
I love that. Dude, you get Taylor Swift in the crowd, and they're ready to rock.
Yeah, there's not in our house. Taylor. Welcome to New York, right?
Concrete jungle where dreams are made of.
No, that's different artist. That's
that's
Alicia
Beyonce.
Keys and Young Ho.
Alicia Keys.
Beyonce. Come on.
It's a joke. I knew it was Alicia Keys.
Sure you did.
She's the This Girl Is on Fire lady. I'm very aware of who
This Girl Is on Fire lady. I don't know, man. Like there's not a whole lot to really take away from this game other than it was the 49ers just handling business. We were right, I think, even though the Niners covered the 19 points. We were absolutely correct in saying 14 points was a ton of points for this game because the Cardinals were probably a little bit better of a team than we thought going in.
I agree.
And if Zach Ertz catches that ball, it's an easy cover for the Cardinals. So against a backup defense, obviously. So I feel good about like our takes and the way we analyze this game coming in. I'm just like,
it was closer than the Niners probably wanted it to be.
Are the 49ers boring?
No.
Do we need them to spice it up?
They're not boring. They're inevitable.
No. It does feel like, though, like for all the conversation that we've had about this team over the last, years and years, they feel more boring now. And this isn't a bad thing. I'm just saying from like a content perspective, they're great from like they're winning, they're dominating. This team looks like a Super Bowl favorite, all of that stuff. But there's like very little controversy about this team now. It's never like with Jimmy Garoppolo, it was always like, well, like Jimmy will still do Jimmy things. Can they win with Jimmy? Blah, blah, blah. It feels like based on the way they're playing, they can win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy, right? And Christian McCaffrey is just dominant. And they still have Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle. The 49ers they feel
Deebo
boring.
Samuel and Brandon Ayuk for sure.
Yeah, we don't know about George Kittle. Maybe put George Kittle on a oat milk box somewhere.
They have Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and Ross Dwelly.
Oh man, maybe we could try to get George on the pod to defend himself. But no, man, like this is the most boring the 49ers have felt. Like it's hard to be super takey on this team because it was easy to be takey, like, oh, Trey Lance needs to play more. That's the only way you're gonna get him to develop. Can they win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy? We don't really know. Well, it looks like they can absolutely win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy.
Their offense right now looks more capable of winning a Super Bowl than it ever did with Jimmy Garoppolo.
There you go. That's a take. Yeah,
I pretty firmly believe that.
Yeah, and as high of a level as Brock Purdy is playing, I think Christian McCaffrey has a ton to do with that also.
No doubt. No doubt. If Christian McCaffrey retired tomorrow and Brandon Ayuk said, I'm taking a sabbatical, I'm out of here for 6 weeks, and Deebo Samuel went, I'm going to go with him, then yeah, the Niners are probably not scoring 30 points.
Probably not.
Because then they'd be left with like Charlie Warner.
Right.
And that's it.
Oh man. No, I think it's really like I feel like there's going to be a case to be made that Christian McCaffrey is going to be the best midseason acquisition in 49ers history. Like, is he already the best midseason acquisition in 49ers history? Yeah, I mean, they got a guy.
If you say Emmanuel Sanders, I'm going to punt this computer.
No. I was I'm trying to think. I mean, Charles Omenihu, way up there.
Jordan Willis.
Right, Jordan Willis. No, man, like they acquired the guy who is in the MVP conversation, who has to be the favorite for Offensive Player of the Year through 4 games, mid-season, and like I made this point in the group text with you and Nick. Shout out to Nick today. Like, if you would have asked Kyle Shanahan a year ago that he would get this from Christian McCaffrey, and you list his performances and the touchdown streak and how well the offense is playing, he wouldn't have believed you. This scenario has to be better than what Kyle Shanahan anticipated, I would think, right?
Yeah. Yeah, particularly just from a health perspective.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that he's been available, I think is step one. But I think the thing Shanahan might not have anticipated is just the impact on the offense as a whole.
Yeah.
Like, McCaffrey himself is obviously a really talented player, but the spark he gives to the entire offense, I think, was probably not necessarily foreseen.
I think what's really impressive about him, like when you watch replays of his runs, it's very clear that he's getting to the right spots. Like, he is hitting the right gaps. Very rarely are you like, oh man, he missed this gap, or he should have waited for this block, or whatever.
Yeah. It feels like he never runs into his own dudes.
Yeah, he's just always, he's got great vision. He's really decisive as a runner. He's got great timing, and he's got a great feel for like where the defenders are. Like that, like leaping over the defender on his way to his second touchdown today was really sick, because it wasn't like the dude was in front of him. It was almost like watching the replay. It was like he didn't really see him. He just kind of felt the guy and then leapt over him as he was trying to lunge and tackle him. It was like an innate feel thing that feels super unique while you watch it. But like Deebo Samuel had that one. They had that one tricky play action one way, and then Deebo Samuel on the jet sweep running around. And the Niners had that blocked up. Like, Jake Brendel was the only guy who was sort of struggling. And if Deebo would have put his right foot in the ground and cut inside of that block, I feel like he would have scored. And it might have been an indication that Deebo's not fully healthy, because it seemed like he was in full decoy mode today anyway.
Yeah.
But that was an example of like, man, if that was McCaffrey, he probably would have housed it, or he at least would have gone for a 40 or 50 yard gain. I mean, right. I think that would have been a touchdown at where they were on the field. But like, point being, you can watch plays where they block it up really well. And the difference between CMC and even Deebo, an unhealthy Deebo, obviously, like, he's not healthy. So like, peak 2021 Deebo probably scores there, but it's so impressive to watch CMC, the way he runs, the way he feels where the defenders are. Even like today with that leap over the defender, like we were talking about for that touchdown, is one of those crazy, like, only an elite ball carrier with elite feel can like do that. Right. Yeah. It's kind of similar to like that spin on the long touchdown in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it's like, who would have thought to do that, to spin off a guy who's like in your way blocking you, that also happens to like completely juke a defender who's 5 yards away from you at the next level. Right. Like, he just does things that feel super unique. And then he can line up in the slot and break off a slot defender and, get you 6 yards whenever you want it.
I didn't realize when they acquired him how good he is at running the football. Like, I knew he was good, obviously. Like, Christian McCaffrey's good, but I had never watched him as closely as I do now. And he definitely is just a better running back, like just pure get the ball and run, than anyone they've had. It's just different. Like, the offense is going to give you free yards, but then he also creates yards more than I think anybody they've had.
He feels like a Hall of Fame talent.
I agree.
Like he
He's gotta
might
be headed there, right?
if he stays healthy with the numbers he's already put up in Carolina and the fact that he has 1,000-yard rushing and 1,000-yard season.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like if he wins a ring and continues this pace for the next 3 or 4 years, he feels like a lock. Because the thing is with his game, like no running backs age gracefully, right? But it feels like he might have the best shot to, or at least like he could a better shot to like, I can't carry the ball 25 times, but I could be a pretty nasty slot receiver.
Yeah, right. He just spends his early 30s being a slot receiver.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Like screens and stuff.
Ben Wood in the YouTube chat asks, one is Kyle, I assume he means Shanahan, not me, going to dial it back on the CMC usage. This can't be sustainable health and physical toll-wise for 17 weeks. I would tend to agree, especially in a game like this where Jordan Mason gets 3 carries and McCaffrey has 20.
Yeah.
That's something I definitely question is why is it not more Jordan Mason when you're up 2 scores in the fourth quarter?
It did feel like they did need to like put offense together in the second half though, because the Cardinals had 2 consecutive long touchdown drives. So I got like when it was 16-21 and going into the fourth quarter, it did feel like, this game is not over. You need to go score again, which they did. They went and scored twice.
No, but then they went up 28-16. And like after that.
Yeah.
It was early fourth quarter. Oh, they only had 1 possession after that, so.
Yeah.
No, I definitely think mixing in more Mason or Mitchell or Davis Price or whomever would be beneficial at some point.
Yeah, I would agree. I would have thought Ty Davis Price would have got some run today.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Did you see Talanoa Hufanga scuffling with James Conner afterwards?
Yeah. James Conner's a fraud for that.
I thought it was like you're gonna push someone's face with your hand. It wasn't a punch. It was like
it's definitely a mush.
It was a mush while you're wearing a helmet.
That's why I said he's a fraud.
Yeah, like whatever. These things happen. It seemed like James Conner was doesn't seem like he's in a spot where he's going to exchange too many holiday cards with members of the 49ers defense this year.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah. In terms of love lost, I would say there's very little.
I'm searching for some possible love lost here, and I'm not.
Yeah, just not coming up with any.
Nothing. Hey, throw the records out when these 2 teams play.
Yeah.
Cliches.
Yeah.
No, I don't know, man. Just another. I felt the same way about this win that I did the other 3, where it's like, yep, Niners are a better team, and that's probably going to be the case most of the games they play.
The fact that they're boring speaks to how good that they are.
Yeah.
Like, they're not boring.
I wouldn't even say boring.
I think they're a little boring.
Their games are not close, necessarily.
They're boring from the standpoint of, like, where they were in the preseason when we're talking about Trey Lance and all that stuff. And, like, boring, I'm not saying boring is bad. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying, like, it's tough. They're at a point where they're, like, so good that it's hard to come up with new things to say about the team.
The good news is we have a podcast.
and we are required by law to say things about the team.
I have something to say.
Go for it.
They lied about Trey Lance.
In what way?
They were sending him to a place where there's a better opportunity. He has been the inactive QB3 all 4 weeks of the year.
Well, Trey, I think
Trey Lance revenge game next week?
Is what?
Trey Lance revenge game next week?
Maybe. It would take a couple injuries, I think, for it to get there. But I mean, look, I think Trey Lance's camp, and I don't know this for a fact, but I would guess, an educated guess, that Trey Lance's camp was the one who really pushed the trade. Because my point before the whole thing was like, it doesn't really make sense to trade Trey Lance because you've needed 3 quarterbacks, in 4 of Kyle Shanahan's 6 seasons. Why would you just trade a guy for a future pick when that doesn't help you win the Super Bowl right now? Well, if Trey Lance's camp is like, no, trade me, and the 49ers want to do right by their player, I mean, that's all part of it. Like, you do right by some players, and then you become sort of a desirable destination. Like, I think because the 49ers are willing to do right by certain players, even if it includes trading them, that's a reason why they are desirable for other players, like free agents. Like, the Niners being desirable was a super important reason they got Richard Sherman. The Niners being desirable was a super important reason they got Trent Williams. Right? Like Charvarius Ward, Javon Hargrave, like you can go down the list of like key acquisitions. And a lot of that stems to like the organization actually working well with players to try to do right by players whenever they can. I think trading Trey Lance after he didn't get the job and him and his camp were so salty was sort of them being like, all right, we'll trade you here if that's what you really want. And they'll say this is a better situation for you, where in actuality, the way it's played out, it hasn't worked out that way.
Yeah. I don't actually have Trey Lance Cowboys takes.
Oh, you don't?
No. Like everything you just said is right. I was just joking about. Because the Niners, it's just funny that the Niners are like, oh, he didn't want to be a QB. He wants somewhere where he can be a QB2, and this is an opportunity for him to do that. And it's like, nope. That's just funny.
My prize picks were so bad.
Mine too.
So I had shout out to Prize Picks, Daily Fantasy. Jake Moody, I had more than 1.5 field goals. 0 field goals.
I had more than 7.5 points. He had 5 points.
Yeah, tough scene. Christian McCaffrey, I had more than 81.5 rushing yards. That cashed, obviously. I had Rondale Moore, more than 27.5 receiving yards. And my take was basically like, I think there are going to be a couple Cardinals pass catchers who go off. And in fact, they had 3 guys, Zach Ertz, Michael Wilson, and Hollywood Brown, who all had well over 27.5 yards, with Hollywood Brown having 96, Michael Wilson, 2 touchdowns, 76 yards. Nice game for him. Stanford alum.
He's on my dynasty team. No big deal.
6 for 53 from Ertz. All those dudes validated. I shouldn't say verified, but validated my take that the Niners were going to give up some passing yards. Rondale Moore had 0 receiving yards today.
On 2 targets. That's okay. I had James Conner over 15.5 receiving yards. He had 4.
Yeah. I didn't want to say it at the time. I wasn't feeling great about that Conner pick, but I'm trying to. I want to gas you up when we do all this stuff.
No, and I appreciate that. I need that. I need you gassing me up more than I need the W's.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, no, tough week in prize picks for me, but I'm bouncing back. I'll be back next week. If you want to join us, prizepicks.com/candlestick. Use promo code candlestick for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's promo code candlestick at prizepicks.com/candlestick for a first deposit match up to $100.
Okay.
Tough luck for us.
You traveled to Florida on an NFL Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I assume you didn't fly direct, did you?
Well, Miami and then to Key West.
SFO to Miami?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Good for you, man.
Yeah. No, it's fine. Like perfect timing where I was able to watch football in terms of like landing East Coast time. So I got to watch a lot of football. Got to stream on the plane, which is great. The flight from Miami to Key West is like half an hour. And it's super funny because you get up to your cruising altitude, right? And they go, American Airlines would like to welcome you, blah, blah, blah. It's now safe to use your large electronic devices, blah, blah, blah. So she comes over and says that. Like 4 minutes later, bro, she comes on. She's like, and we're beginning our descent into Key West. You can power down your large electronic devices. Like, I hope whoever pulled out their laptop got that email in.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super humid, super wet already.
That's how Florida is, man.
I know it.
I hope you get some sunshine. Heather picking Cowboys week for the vacation. I'm just gonna blame Heather for that. No, I'm just kidding.
No. This was not how it was previously scheduled.
Okay, that's fair.
There were some we were supposed to go to Maui.
Yes.
And we refused to be the people that still showed up like, hey, we're here. So
what happened?
Yeah. So, we, did our donations and stuff, and then we're like, we're going to stay away. So we had to kind of scramble on the fly and change some things. So, that's why we were traveling.
Yeah. Shout out to everyone in Maui and dealing with all that stuff, man. Fires are awful, all too familiar of a feeling. And we feel for everybody out there. If anybody from the islands is listening.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got nothing else, man. I think the 49ers might be so good. They're a little boring.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. It's a good place to be.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. It's just like, even the right side of their offensive line, for example, hasn't been great, but it's not been so bad that it's been like, hey, this is a real problem. And maybe it shows up next week. Maybe next week they lose to Dallas, or they have a really tough game against Dallas, and maybe they win, but it's really close and they get exposed in these areas and we can talk about it. But right now they're just kind of beating everybody because they're just better.
I'm looking forward to this week's going to be fun, diving into the Cowboys and watching the Niners play another juggernaut team, because it's going to be an opportunity to, I think, just really see where Brock Purdy's at. We've already seen Brock Purdy beat the Cowboys, but it wasn't necessarily like a great Brock Purdy performance. He outplayed Dak Prescott. But like I'm curious, because it could be like a really big time statement win for the Niners.
Yeah, if they win, and we'll talk about it during this week, obviously, but if they win and just kind of control the game, that would be a pretty significant statement.
That would be a big statement. And then going to Cleveland, like if 1-1 is probably acceptable at this point, the next 2 weeks, right? Home to Dallas and at Cleveland, 1-1's acceptable.
Did you see Cleveland, how bad they got beat by the Ravens today?
Well, yeah, Deshaun Watson didn't play.
Yikes.
He was a scratch beforehand with a shoulder injury.
That's right.
So we'll see about that going forward, but he was a game time decision. So I would expect him to play next week. We'll see. But no, like if they go 1-1, that's obviously acceptable, but they're absolutely good enough to go 2-0.
Yeah. Yeah, they're favored against the Cowboys, and they'll probably be favored against Cleveland.
Yeah. That's two great games. I'm glad that, look, like as you know, it's just not super fun to like try to talk about a really great team going up against teams like the Giants and Cardinals. So I'm glad that we get to talk about the Niners and Cowboys and Browns and all that going forward, because they're like, those are two of the best defenses in the league the Niners are going to go against, and it'll be a much more interesting conversation being like, well, they handled business against the Cowboys or against the Giants and Cardinals. So,
although if they beat the heck out of the Cowboys, that's what I'm going to say. Well, Niners handle business again.
Oh,
it is
so
kind of wild
boring.
after watching the Cardinals today. It is really wild that they beat the Cowboys as bad as they did.
Yeah.
Although Dallas, 2 more defensive touchdowns today.
Yeah. Brock Purdy still doesn't turn the ball over.
I know. Mac Jones got benched.
Yes. Yikes. The scene. It's not great.
It's tough.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll see George Kittle at some point. Maybe he'll play some football this season. We'll see.
Yeah, no. Hope he's back next week for sure.
Back on the active 46. All right, let's get out of here.
Just box. Chris and I don't watch games. We just look at the box scores after.
Yeah.
Like, God, Kittle, another terrible game.
George, is it time to move on? No, I love it. All right, so shout out to everybody who hangs out with us these days on YouTube. We've been live streaming on YouTube. Check us out, Candlestick Chronicles podcast on YouTube. Give us all the likes. Click the notification bell. Obviously, subscribe to the channel. It's huge for us as we try to grow this platform and create more content for you guys. And everybody who listens on the podcast, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get them. on Apple Pods or Spotify or everywhere else. I think
Is Stitcher still a thing?
I think so. I think Stitcher's a thing. I think we can live stream on Stitcher also. Maybe we'll like maybe consider some other mediums.
Yeah, we're just starting this. We're fledgling in this.
Yeah, we're new to all this stuff. So easing our way in, I think is the best way to put it.
There you go.
So shout out to everybody for supporting, listening, watching, and we will talk to you guys later in the week. Kyle, enjoy your vacation. I have no idea what this means for us content-wise this week. We will talk about it offline, but enjoy your time and all the best to Heather for me, okay?
My man. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. We'll see you guys.
Bye.